Monday Night Football with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants, plus a Week 8 recap. It's the FTN Fantasy Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast for October 28th, 2024. I am Aaron Schatz, the DVOA guy from FTN Fantasy. He is Mike Tanier. Make sure you're following his Substack at miketanier.substack.com. Before we review Week 8 in the NFL, I want to tell you about our sponsor, which is Underdog Fantasy. It is the easiest place to play fantasy sports and the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. Underdog now offers a new customer FTN special with up to $1,000 on your first time deposit. I've been playing Underdog actually this season for the first time. I'm having a great fun time with it, trying to guess who's going to score a touchdown and put together a red zone special where you get bonus for the touchdowns, although Barkley left me high and dry yesterday with those 3 Hurts touchdowns. Underdog app is so easy to use. Weekly contests are back, like the 2-minute drill, the double doink, and the onside kick. Head over to Underdog for a deposit match up to $1,000 when you sign up with special code FTN. NFL season is here, and who better to celebrate with than Underdog Fantasy?
We are NFL professionals. And Aaron's like, oh, my God, Jalen Hurts is scoring all the short yardage touchdowns.
Well, I was hoping there'd be a longer touch. I thought he would get in from 10 or something. But
of course.
My trio yesterday was Mixon, Henry, Barkley.
Oh, yeah.
I got 2 of them.
You got 2. That's the way they work. That's how they get you.
If you don't subscribe to Mike's Substack yet, you should, of course, because the Monday walkthrough is essential reading to review the week's games. And what was interesting in the walkthrough today was that your basic idea was that the 2 South divisions are decided.
Right, but I missed one.
And what's interesting is that the playoff odds that I run using DVOA kind of disagree a little bit about which divisions are decided. So I thought we would go through the division favorites currently in the DVOA playoff odds that you can get at FTN Fantasy. And we will see which teams, because a lot of the divisions are pretty decided at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The number 1 team that has its division decided is not the Texans.
Oh, no, it's not.
The Buffalo Bills. 98% of simulations do the Bills win their division. And that brings us to the first question. Don't forget, if you are watching us live, 11 a.m., Mondays and Thursdays, you can ask questions and make comments. And Mike Roosh wants to know, with the trade deadline approaching and given his performance thus far, where does Aaron Rodgers fall on your GM rankings thus far this season?
Right around Trent Baalke. He's in bottom 5. There's probably worse GMs out there. I'll tell you, the Titans GM, Massafort, who brought in all of those guys in June and July, brought in Jamal Adams and Tyler Borden, and is now fire sailing everybody, might be worse than Aaron Rodgers. But he's down there.
Yeah, the Jets, I was at the game, Jets-Patriots yesterday, and I have to tell you, all of the air went out of that stadium when Drake May's head got hit. And the second halftime, we were all basically like, well, they'll lose this game, and maybe next week May won't play, but they're playing the Titans, so they might get away with a win there. And then May will be back, and we'll be back to, hoping for the future. Nobody thought that Jacoby Brissett was going to bring that team back, and the Jets folded. I mean, and Devontae Adams, there were a couple of plays where Garrett Wilson had a big catch, and you were like, okay, if there's no Devontae Adams, then Christian Gonzalez is on Garrett Wilson, and maybe he doesn't make those catches, but the coverage was good on them. So I don't feel like Devontae Adams had dramatically opened up their offense.
The announcer was saying it, and it was accurate. Like, the Jets are just trying to beat man coverage. They can't beat man coverage. And they're getting a lot of man coverage against it. And I ran the stats I could. The stats for Aaron Rodgers trying to beat man are not good, because I don't think he's being super accurate. I don't think guys are getting open. Now, Adams is going to help that, but they can't be here week 8. They can't be here.
No, it's over. I mean, 2-6, it's over. They're not. Yeah. I mean, they would have to basically go like 8-1 They basically have to go 8-1 to win a playoff spot at this point.
To win a playoff spot. And, and part of that is scheme. And it's very basic scheme. There's about 1,000 ways to beat man coverage. But when your coaching tree goes from Rodgers to what's his name in between, and
Hackett
and the other kid.
I don't remember the name of the guy who now calls plays, but
yeah. Who's the decision maker is going to say, hey, you know what? We need more crossing routes. We need more this. We need more motion, maybe, because motion's a great way to get isolation and get somebody on the move before they play. And they're not going to do that.
The number 2 division favorite right now is your Houston Texans at 96%. Although we are still waiting for someone to poke the passing game with a stick. Like they're doing everything well except passing, and now they may have lost Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when Nico Collins is coming back, but it feels like at what point do we stop waiting for the passing game to be better than this?
Right, and start realizing this is what the passing game is, and that's kind of it. You can look at all these little things. Again, Collins out. You look at Diggs out. Some of their depth guys that they thought they were going to have, like Robert Woods, are out. They don't get a lot from the backs and the tight ends in the passing game at all.
Schultz is good.
Schultz, they do get some Schultz. He was out for a week or two. I might be thinking of that. They don't do a lot of in-space stuff where it's like get the ball to Tank Dell. They use Tank Dell like a regular receiver and not like a Zay Flowers type of guy. So you don't get a lot of yak opportunities like that. And, I think Stroud is fine, but Stroud has not taken this quantum leap forward. He's probably taken a little step back from last year. And that shows in a game when they were facing a Colts team that basically we have 2 highlights, guys. We got 2 highlights. That's our offense. If those 2 highlights ain't enough, nothing is happening. And those 2 highlights almost were.
If you were the Colts, would you pull Richardson or would you just keep playing him and be like, he's got to learn and we're not going to make the playoffs and he's got to learn?
I'm glad I'm not the Colts because I don't know. Because I go back and forth on it because I think Flacco gives them a better chance to win every week right now. But if you drafted Richardson not realizing this might be a 3-year operation, then you didn't do good self-scouting and didn't do good planning. So it's tricky.
The number 3 most likely division favorite is the Kansas City Chiefs at 94%. Even though the Chargers and the Broncos have been better than expected, in particular the Broncos have been better than expected.
Yes.
The Chiefs are 7-0. So 8-0, sorry.
Yeah.
7-0 or 8-0. I can't remember if
they are 8 and oh my goodness. Yeah, it's these mornings are getting long, aren't they?
I can't remember if they've had their bye week yet.
They're 7-0. They are 7-0. Yeah, the Broncos are sitting there at 5-3. But when you factor in things like the actual quality of the teams and their opponents, yes, you can see why that's the case.
The next one is a surprise, perhaps, which is that the Ravens are at 75%, even though the Steelers technically have a better record. But the Ravens are far better in DVOA than the Steelers are.
Right.
They were far better in our preseason projections, which still matter.
Right.
And they have an easier remaining schedule than the Steelers do.
That's interesting.
The Giants are easy, but after tonight.
All right, that's interesting. I'm going to hit you with this right now. The Bills are minus 4,000 to win the AFC East. The Chiefs are minus 8,000 to win the AFC West. The Ravens are only at minus 175.
Yeah, that's a good bet right now.
That's a good bet right now, again, because it's like they're 5-3. You see the Browns, beat them yesterday. But yeah, if you look at the futures of everything, you see this is a much stronger team than their opponents in the division.
Now, their pass defense is down to 25th.
Interesting.
Their run defense is still top 5.
One of the things, and I looked it up last week, one of the problems with their pass defense has been dropped interceptions, which I don't think is in DVOA.
Which there was a big one yesterday. Kyle Hamilton could have ended the game, basically.
Right, but there were 6 per Sports Insight Solutions. Going into that, 6 is a lot. A typical team might have 2 at this time of year. Now it's at least 7. I didn't watch the whole game. That's a big factor in the passing game, but I want to dig deeper into their passing game to find some of the other things that have been going wrong because it has turned into a little bit of a problem.
The pass defense, you mean?
Pass defense is what I meant to say. Thank you, yeah.
The next one we have is the Falcons at 72%, although I will fully cop to the idea that I may not be adjusting enough for what's going on with the Buccaneers receivers.
Right. And you are adjusting, but it's hard to put a gauge on something like that.
Yeah, just how much, because Evans will be back. right?
Yeah.
So it's not like the cascade of losing both Evans and Godwin is only for a couple of games, and then Evans will be back. So we have Falcons at 72% and Bucs at something like 25, and
Right.
whatever. The other two teams are at like 1.
Falcons are probably a great team that had just without a pass rush, with 0 pass rush.
There's no, even with Judon, no pass rush.
There is no pass rush. And like you know, that jerky thing, and I did it on a radio show. It's like, imagine if they had drafted Jared Verse instead of a quarterback. You want to be that little poke somebody and keep the storyline alive. But I think it's accurate because it's like, oh, well, we have a below average rather than a bottom 5 pass rush. Maybe we're a different team right now moving forward.
The number 6 most likely division favorite is the Detroit Lions at 63%.
They're up at 63.
Which is because they are so good right now. And they are, I will say, number 1 in DVOA, and this time it will stick. Nobody will pass them on Monday night. This will be the first week ever in 45 years. The Lions end the week at number 1.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations. That's phenomenal. They're at minus 135 to win the division. Now, obviously, you can understand why, because they have 2 really good opponents and a half decent one in the division. But 60-something percent.
Yeah, well, I've got them at 63%. Vikings at 18, Packers at 18.
Wow.
And Bears at 1.
I don't love it because so much can happen there, but the numbers will tell you if you like playing division bets to make that bet.
The Lions are now 4th. I believe they're 3rd on offense, 4th on defense, 1st on special teams.
Right.
They had the 2nd best special teams game in the entire database.
Wow.
Yeah. They had only 1 touchdown,
right.
But they had 2 other returns that were like 60 and 70 yards.
Wow.
And they forced a fumble, which they did not recover, but they did force it.
Okay.
And it just was, and they boomed the punts. They boomed punts. Okay. It was an incredible special teams game for the Lions. My estimate was 17.9 points worth of special teams value.
That's great. Of course, they're facing a team that's in free fall. That's part of it. Got to admit, I didn't watch that one because we had, I think,
there's other more important games.
Early games.
I said 85 yards in a 30-point blowout might be an NFL record. I don't know, for 4 touchdown wins. I don't know what the record is, but it was pretty impressive.
Wow.
The number 7 most likely division favorite is the Washington Commanders at 56%.
I'm stunned.
With the Eagles at 39%.
That doesn't leave a lot of percentage points for the Dallas Cowboys, does it?
That leaves very few percentage points. And we'll get to the Cowboys in a second when we talk about the last of our division favorites. But first of all, the Hail Mary was an incredible game because prior to the Hail Mary, the Commanders were going to lose, despite the fact that they had more yards per play, more plays, fewer penalties, and fewer turnovers, which is insane.
Right. But it was a testament to how many little mistakes they made in the red zone. They were going in, they'd go into the red zone, and there were drop passes. Daniels did take a big sack in one of them, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why they were dominating that game, and I think they were up 12-0 when they should have been up like 23-0.
Yeah, it was 12-0 when it should have been a lot more. There's just red zone problems. But, I mean, the Commanders are at 56. So you tell me about the Eagles. You watched Eagles-Bengals. You were in a Philly bar. It feels like they're back. At one point, Lane Johnson got hurt. People were pretty worried. He came back pretty quickly. How was the guy who replaced my Lotta, by the way?
He's been hanging in there. I mean, one of the things they've been doing, Fred Johnson has been in there. He also replaced Lane Johnson for a game early in the year. They're protecting him by running the ball more. They're protecting him by running the ball more. They're giving him the tight ends on that side. Of course, when you don't throw over the middle of the field, you can have Jake Stoll blocking a little more often to make these things happen. So the Eagles are surviving with that. Again, Johnson, you're right, came back. And for the first 6 weeks, they look like the team you expected to see.
Yeah.
And from let's say the second quarter of the Giants game, when they really just started destroying them through this one, they look like the team I guess I was, let's say, hoping to see.
That the team that the markets were expecting to see before the season.
Right. But the thing is, the team you expected to see, one of the things you talked about was a team that was going to have a slow start because of adjustments to the new schemes. And so that would, be a good explanation for maybe why they had a slow start. Yeah, and Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, the two rookie corners, have gone from they were getting picked on. The Falcons picked on them. That was that late game. They were just going after, I think it was Quinyon over and over again, to guys who are, okay, Chase has a big game, but they can shut other things down and help preserve a win.
And then the final division, this is the one that's really up for grabs. 49ers, 38%. Cardinals, 24%. Seahawks, 22%. Rams, 16%.
Is there any adjustment for the Rams getting Puka back in there?
I think I forgot to do that. I probably should for tomorrow, because clearly their offense is very different when Nakua and Cooper Kupp are in there. Like they're better than that.
Right, because my theory is they're now the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers are now the Rams, and the Rams are the team that looks to make a run. Seahawks had a weird, they were actually hanging in okay early in that game, and they went two trips inside the 5, 3 points.
And then the Bills just were like, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah. No, that was your chance, guys. But you know how I feel about the Seahawks. It's like, bye, Felicia.
Yeah, Cardinals have been surprisingly good. I think their offense, Murray has been back, right? Like we said, golly, it's been like 2.5 years since Murray was really good. Well, that's over now. He's good.
He's good. Harrison helps.
So their defense is bad. Their offense is good. Mm-hmm. They're in the mix. The 49ers last night, DVOA likes them much more than their record, even with the injuries, but the injuries are still going to be a problem going forward. And I thought Garendo looked good. Mm-hmm. When Mason got hurt, Fred Warner is Fred Warner. Lenore is playing well. They're still there, man. They're still, I don't think they're an NFC Super Bowl favorite at this point, but they're still very much like a good team.
They're still there. I would pick them to win the division. I would feel comfortable with that. The odds, by the way, are currently plus 110. That's a heck of a bet to get the 49ers, plus 110 to win that division.
That sounds like I have them lower than the markets do.
You probably have them lower than the market. That's what it sounds like. I'm not going to run all that right now in real time. But yeah, I would still pick them to come out of that division. You're right. But it's range finding now. Who are they? At this point, are they a match for the Detroit Lions? If another team is surging and the 49ers aren't, are they going to be a match for them?
I think what 49ers fans are holding on to is the idea that when CMC does come back, he unlocks everything, even if there is no Ayuk.
Right.
Is that true? I don't know.
One shining guy.
They're waiting for their shining knight to come back. The receivers without Ayuk, they're still, Debo is Debo. Mm-hmm. And Jennings is underrated, and Pearsall looks pretty good so far.
Right.
And Kittle is Kittle. Mm-hmm. So we're just waiting for CMC to come back. Does he magically unlock everything?
I think you're answering your own question by saying that. And you also, Jordan Mason was leading the league in rushing for a while and was top 5 in rushing. I don't know what his status is after yesterday's injury, but you shouldn't be waiting for your running back to come back. That's not a sign of overall health of the situation.
Yeah. We talk about reverse post-game win expectancy games. So there was one this week, and it was, of course, Aaron Rodgers. The Patriots had a 20% post-game win expectancy and beat the Jets anyway. And the Jets.
The Jets' go-to 3rd and 6 play is Rodgers kind of overthrowing a guy and shaking his head. I'm done with this drive look of the Jets offense, and you saw it a bunch of times yesterday. It's everyone looks covered. I'm just gonna fart the ball away, and we're gonna punt. They settled for a short field goal. Some of the things about the Jets are almost mind-numbing right now.
Yeah, Hitchhiker's Pie says, "Woo, ruining our draft pick, but the vibes are amazing." I think that's a Patriots point of view. It sounded like on Twitter when I said something about this that most Patriots fans preferred the win, preferred beating the Jets to the idea of the higher draft pick. I feel like last year was the year to lose for the draft pick. They got the quarterback. This year, as good as boy, wouldn't it be fun to have Travis Hunter and try to play in both ways? Yay.
Oh God.
I feel like you want to try to build a winning culture. You want to try to win 4 or 5 games. Mm-hmm. If it means that they draft 5th, that's where the offensive tackles are anyway.
Right.
They beat the Jets. Awesome.
You beat the Jets, right? You embarrassed Aaron Rodgers. Again, yeah, you're building something from a culture standpoint. You got to keep May healthy, which they've been having trouble doing, but you're in position to get the best non-quarterback. You're going to not need to draft a quarterback. If you're third or fourth, it might be 3 or 4 quarterbacks in front of you. It's cool.
Yeah, you may end up, if you're third or fourth, you may end up with Travis Hunter, if that's what you want. Or you may drop to 6th or 7th and take a tackle because nobody feels like the tackles in this draft are top 4 guys. Mm-hmm. And that's what you need the most. So maybe you add some more draft picks and you drop a couple spots and you'll be good.
Right, exactly. And if you do finish 2nd or 3rd, then you could play games and say, hey, somebody needs a quarterback, and you can add picks, and that would be a lot of fun too. But don't try to play for that.
Yeah. Here is your DVOA top 12. Let's count it up. Number 12, the Atlanta Falcons, up 4 spots. Yeah. Number 11, up 7 spots. The Philadelphia Eagles.
We're almost in the top 10, guys.
Number 10, I can't believe they're still doing this, but the Denver Broncos.
Yeah. Well, by the way, for a new rule on the podcast, we don't draw any conclusions from a win over the Panthers from now on.
Well, that's true.
Right, but good game.
Number 9, the Washington Commanders.
Yeah. Number
8, the Green Bay Packers.
Weird game. We're waiting on Jordan Love injury information, but man,
groin doesn't sound. I mean, the joke is there is no such thing as a minor groin injury, but at least he didn't re-aggravate the knee injury.
Good point. Right.
7 is Houston.
Yeah, just hanging in.
6, surprising at 4-4, San Francisco.
All right. Right.
Then a gap. Then number 5 is Buffalo.
Yeah.
Number 4, I wish they were higher, Kansas City.
No, that feels right. Are you getting flack? Are you getting flack from Chiefs fans or something on this?
No, I mean, I think if I talked to Nick Wright, he'd give me flack. But I think Chiefs fans understand that they're not blowing everybody away this year. But they're undefeated, right? It's like right. Baltimore. We're about to get to Baltimore. Baltimore lost to Cleveland, and meanwhile, Kansas City's undefeated. Why is Baltimore higher than Cleveland? It's because of their losses have been close and their wins have been great. And, Kansas City let the Raiders score late. Right. But we just feel like that just is what keeps going.
Yeah.
Minnesota is 3rd.
Hanging on that ledge.
Hanging on. Fell after the loss, but hanging on. Number 2, the Baltimore Ravens.
Yep. Played well yesterday.
And then a big gap. And some of this is special teams, and special teams is more inconsistent. And there's nothing that says the Lions will have more special teams days like they did this week. But even if you took special teams out, the Lions would still be number 1.
And deservedly, because when you look at it, more and more it looks like they kind of have like a bad quarter against the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a couple fluke plays, and that's the reason that they're not an undefeated team.
And we're waiting for a game. Look, I think we all feel like when they play a better offense, the lack of Hutchinson is going to be a problem.
Right.
But so far, it hasn't been.
And they're the team that should be kicking every tire to try and get somebody in as a pass.
I know. The guy I recommended was Gardeck, went on IR.
Right.
And I just feel like all of the other other edge rushers who get talked about being traded to Detroit, why would the teams trade them?
Harold Landry. Everything must go in Tennessee.
Yeah, I guess. People talk about Myles Garrett. Why would the Browns do that to their fan base? Like, why? You're basically, remember, in the NFL, nobody thinks of a rebuild as being 3 years, right? You think of a rebuild as being why would you take a generational player who represents your franchise and trade him? Right.
And again, this is like on Reddit. You'll get 3 first-round picks. You won't. He's got this huge contract. And yeah, you're right. And in the locker room, the signal that would make. Now, of course, I think that's moot now that the Browns have a win and they can say, oh my God, we can play football again.
Iceman says Zadarius Smith. He's in Cleveland, right? That's a possibility.
That's a possibility. That's like you rent 4 or 5 sacks, which could make a difference down the line when you're trying to get home field advantage.
Speaking of sacks, Monday Night Football, Steelers -6 versus Giants. This is the Russell Wilson, not quite Justin Fields sack parade, but still a lot of sacks against the Giants pass rush that ranks 7th in ESPN's pass rush win rate with Dexter Lawrence leading the league in sacks at defensive tackle.
Yes, playing great.
But also flip it the other way. Backup left tackle Joshua Ezeudu against Highsmith and Illuminor at right tackle against Watt. This feels like a game with a lot of pass pressure.
It's going to have a lot of pass pressure. I'm looking at the over of 36.5, and I'm starting to think chaos over, with all those.
Yeah,
sacks.
I mean, I would. That is a really low number.
Yes. And whenever you have these two big pass rushes coming, it's like, oh, you're going to get a strip sack and a touchdown off a strip sack, etc. I'm trying to look for a sack over. I'm not going to be able to find a total.
The
sack
Giants are the worst defense in the league against deep passes
because
when quarterbacks can stay upright long enough to throw them.
Right, because sacks are automatically not included in the deep passes. So once that ball's in the air, they're pretty weak in the secondary overall, but they do generate a lot of sacks.
And we know who's really good at deep passes when he can stay upright long enough to throw one of them, and that's Russell Wilson to George Pickens.
The bottom line is Daniel Jones is not going to be protected in any way, and he's just going to get obliterated in this game. That's
the line is Steelers -6. I mean, that sounds like a really accurate line.
Yep.
To me.
Yep.
I don't know whether I would bet it at all.
Chaos over. I'm taking chaos over.
Chaos over on the 36.5. I think I'm with you. If I needed to bet this game, I would go over the 36.5.
Right, because it's something that ends like 23-19 with like crazy stupid stuff, and you hit the over, but like you don't get the cover because there's field goals and safeties.
Useful Title wants to know, is Brian Burns on the injury report? Do you have the injury report in front of you? There's no Kayvon Thibodeau, but
yeah, there's no Thibs. He is on this. You can get props on Brian Burns, which usually means that they expect him to play. And I don't have an injury report right now.
Big Cheese 77 wants to know, which Giants pass rusher should you bet on to have some sacks?
Let me check that injury report right now.
I'd say Dexter Lawrence.
Okay, Burns is set to play. And then you got Lawrence. Now let me see what we got here. Burns over any kind of sack. So over 0.25 is -115. Ooh, Dexter Lawrence to even get a half a sack is +115. Take it.
That's what I would go with.
Take it.
Yeah.
Although,
all right, that does it for the Monday show, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, if you are listening to us as a podcast, please like and review the show and tell your friends about it and help spread the word about the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast. We will be back on Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern to preview Week 9 in the NFL. Oh, my God. We are almost at the halfway point. I mean, there's a lot of, oh, my God, we're almost at this event, but some of those events we're not going to talk about here.
But
wow, does time fly. All right. Yeah, so Thursday. We'll talk to you guys all Thursday. Until then, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you on Substack. We'll see you on FTN. Enjoy Monday Night Football, everybody. So long.